Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Laron Johnson, head of LinkedIn Detroit. I'm extremely excited and proud that so many of you have carved time out during your work week to come and spend time with us on such a pivotal day in LinkedIn and Detroit's partnership. In addition to being happy or proud and excited, I'm also happy that we actually have space. Literally for the past 18 months, we've had 50 people probably crowd to a space for 25. So a lot of chippiness in the break room, Red Bulls are getting snatched, people are losing pinky fingers. So when you take the tour later on, just understand we're very appreciative to have space for peace of mind, walking, little office football. All right, briefly I'd like to set the stage for today. We're going to have remarks from Mayor Mike Duggan, Provost of Wayne State University, Mr. Whitfield, and also Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson. In addition, we put together a very distinguished panel of guests to lead us through a conversation on the future work in Detroit. And we as a leadership team could not think of a more appropriate topic than the future work in Detroit. This is the first of many of these events that we plan to host in our long-term space. So excited that you guys can partner with us here. Post-panel, we're going to do an open house. We'll give tours around the buildings. You guys can see the facilities, see the way we try to capture both LinkedIn cultures as well as the city of Detroit and mesh those together to make this a permanent workspace for us. And with that being said, before we start and get too deep into this, I'd like to introduce Mike Derezin. Mike is our global head of LinkedIn Learning. I've had the pleasure of working with Mike and partnering with Mike for the last 6 years. He's one of the most inspirational, thoughtful, and purpose-driven people I've ever had a chance to partner with. In addition to being global head of LinkedIn Learning, Mike is the executive sponsor for LinkedIn Detroit. And that's a huge win for us. What that means is at the highest levels of LinkedIn, Mike is going to be advocating on our behalf to make sure this office exceeds all the ambitious goals that we've set as a leadership team. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Mike.
Hello and welcome. We're delighted to host you all today, and what an important topic, the future of work. Thanks for the introduction, Laron. It was great. I got that thing about the pinky finger, but that was a great intro. So before I get started, I wanted to first share a few words about LinkedIn, and then we'll talk specifically about Detroit. So first, LinkedIn. For those of you who don't know, LinkedIn is the world's largest professional network. We have 600 million members on the platform, and that includes every one of you here today. And in all seriousness, we are delighted for those who don't have a LinkedIn profile. We have a rock your profile session today. So we have professional headshots if you like. We can also have LinkedIn employees help you walk through your profile. And for those of you who have just gotten started on your profiles, we're here to also help you augment them. So please take us up on that today. So LinkedIn, it all starts with our vision to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. And if you just distill that down, create economic opportunity, a lot of that is around jobs, creating jobs and helping people get the skills required to get those jobs. So a couple stats that you may not be aware of. So first of all, LinkedIn now has 20 million jobs on our platform, 20 million. Another interesting stat is that every 8 seconds, someone finds their job on LinkedIn. So that's a lot of jobs each year. But it's not just about getting jobs on LinkedIn, it's also about developing and acquiring the skills to get those jobs. So I'm fortunate enough to lead and co-lead one of our business lines called LinkedIn Learning, which was known as Lynda. We acquired a company called Lynda, now known as LinkedIn Learning. And we have 14,000 courses for individuals across the board, whether it's for creative, technical, leadership, business, etc. And that helps our members develop the skills they need to get the jobs they want. So that's a lot of statistics and a little background on LinkedIn globally. So where does that come for Detroit? Well, when we think about Detroit, we've been inspired by a lot of the activity that's been happening here and a lot of the momentum around creating economic opportunity. And so you can see how our visions mesh very tightly with what's happening in Detroit. And so we're very delighted and excited to invest and be a part and to contribute to this community. So we plan to do that in 2 ways. The first is with being an employer. And so as Laron mentioned, we are excited to be here physically. We have about 50 folks now here in Detroit. We plan to grow the office and be here for the long term. So we're very excited about that. And it's not just about hiring great talent, it's also about investing in the community. So I was fortunate enough this morning to sit down with our ERGs, our employee resource groups, and hear about some amazing stories about some of the things that each of the groups are doing with the community. And so we're gonna hear about one of those, Midnight Golf, which is gonna be part of the panel later in a few minutes. So it's not just though about, in addition to people, it's also the assets that LinkedIn can bring. So I shared some of the stats. We have, you can imagine the data that LinkedIn is sitting on. We call it the economic graph data. And we believe by physically being here, we'll be in a better position to support a lot of the efforts that are already going on and to work with other organizations to bring our economic graph data to life. So think about, for example, skills that are trending or skills gaps that are forming. We intend to be a partner to help the city of Detroit as we're increasingly growing the jobs in this market. So with that, I've shared how we at LinkedIn are passionate about creating economic opportunity. And I have great honor to introduce the mayor, Mike Duggan, who's also passionate about creating jobs and economic opportunity to Detroiters. Let's give it up for Mayor Mike.
This is a special day in so many ways. 2 days ago, I was at the opening of the space for UBS Wealth Management, a couple of doors down. They moved down here, and they talked about looking for locations in Detroit, and they said, we'll be anywhere we can get in Detroit as long as it's on Woodward. And now LinkedIn looks like they have found exactly the same location. And for me, it's hard to describe how emotional it is. I came out of law school in Ann Arbor in the 80s, and my classmates were all going to New York and Chicago and LA. And I said, I'm only applying to jobs in Detroit. They said, Detroit? Why would you go to Detroit? I said, I think there's going to be a comeback. I want to be a part of it. I took a job a couple of blocks from here, and I was just about the only one my age on the street. There were no rooms that looked like this in the 1980s, and it got worse. We watched shopping leave, Hudson's warehouse closed, we saw banks moved out, we saw law firms moved out, and all of these buildings were empty. And I got to watch, and it was sad, as these buildings literally turned off their lights and basically shuttered their windows, and I thought, never in my lifetime would I see Woodward Avenue come back again. And to see what's happening is remarkable. But I had a chance about 6 months ago to do a Skype, pretty long conference call with Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, and I was just talking to him about, okay, Detroit's in kind of the early stages. We're a place now where the young talent wants to be, and you know as much about anybody in the country as to how you create the atmosphere. What would we do? And he gave me a lot of good advice. And then to be here today and have an iconic Silicon Valley firm, one of the top websites in the world, say, I want to be on Woodward in Detroit in space that had been empty for a year. It's just a really special time, and I just wanted to come by and say to LinkedIn, welcome to your new home. Thank you.
I don't know who set this up, but it's not good to follow the mayor. And you're always going to pale in comparison. I'm Keith Whitfield. I am the Provost of Wayne State University. If you know anything about our school, we have been in the city of Detroit for 150 years. And what has our main focus, what has been our main job, is making opportunities for people. I was listening to our previous two speakers and saying, it's wonderful because we're all in alignment. When you think about how the city is going to come back. And I got to tell you, folks in LinkedIn, I'm only like 2 blocks down. If you have some problems or something like that, you need a ride or something, I live on Woodward. When I came to this place, and I came from Duke University, I said, if I'm going to be here, I'm going to be here. And to be here means that you're going to be on Woodward. If you go a little farther down Woodward, you'll find us. You'll find Wayne State's main campus. And that commitment, that alignment that you're starting to hear from more and more companies, more and more employees, more and more entities like us, you know that it's not, we're going to get to this point where we're going to stop calling it a comeback. We're going to just say that we're here. Someone once said, many people have said, that for any great city to make a comeback, they have to have an educational partner. Wayne State is that partner. I was so glad when the mayor said what he said. He said that other Michigan school. We don't mention school around here. We try not to. Wayne State is Detroit's university. We get about 98% of our students from a 100-mile radius. And that's not a fact that's changed just recently. That's our history. Now what's amazing is that then those students go out to impact the city, impact the state, and impact the world. So I can tell you from my perspective, I am so excited to have LinkedIn here. Honestly, I live 2 blocks down. So, you know, there's nice coffee here. There's some great things. I'll be, I think, frequent. But not just for the coffee. I think because of some of the opportunities that we've already talked about, Wayne State is really thinking about the kinds of skills that you need for a 21st century education. It's not like it used to be. You can't get, learn English and learn a bunch of old dead guys and think that you're going to be able to have an impact on the kind of technologically sophisticated, interconnected social mobility world that we live in. We're actually ready to do that. And we've already been having conversations with LinkedIn that do nothing but keep me awake at night because there's so much to do, there's so much capacity, and so much opportunity. I think that you're going to see with all of the wonderful things that you're going to hear that are going to come out of LinkedIn, some of that's going to be the partnership that we've been able to create with LinkedIn from Wayne State's perspective. And the reason is because every conversation we have, we go, uh-huh. From really smart people sitting in the room, all you hear is, uh-huh. It's because we're on the same line. We want to make the opportunities for people, the mobility for people in terms of jobs. And one of the things I can tell you about Wayne State, we will be having our graduations next Thursday and Friday. There are 5 of them. Now the part that I lament is that I'm like the MC for 5 different graduations. But I'm actually not tired afterwards because I see the impact that getting that degree, that getting that diploma actually makes in people's lives. Then what they have to do is advertise themselves on LinkedIn, and they start to see the reality. And it not only affects them, it affects their families, it affects their children. So what we're talking about that's starting here, you gotta hang on, because there's gonna be a lot of great things happening. And I can tell you from Wayne State's perspective, we are so glad, so happy, and so fortunate to be a part of it. Thank you very much. See, as Provost, if you give me a microphone, I'll just keep talking. Is Jocelyn Benson coming up next?
No, we're gonna go to the panel next.
Oh, okay, we're gonna go to panel.
And let's do the elevator pitch right now. So, Ron, why don't you start at your end and tell us a little bit about Penn Foster and what you do.
Okay, I'm Ron Stefanski, a native Detroiter. I grew up on the east side, 16th Van Dyke. As John mentioned, I represent Penn Foster here in the area. We are a 128-year-old, well-kept secret. We've been upskilling America's workforce for 128 years. And just a fun little fact, one of the first courses that we launched in 1890 was for people in Scranton, Pennsylvania. They were coal miners, and they were worried that the coal industry was going to be sunsetting, and they needed to find jobs in the emerging world of energy. And so we built an energy curriculum with a subject matter expert here in Detroit by the name of Thomas Alva Edison. And that launched our first correspondence course. We went on to develop the first international correspondence school, which took us into the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and then we morphed into an online educational provider, which is accredited across the country. And we now, 128 years later, still perform that mission as a social impact organization. And last year, we reached about 180,000 second chance learners. And we're really, really privileged to award 30,000 adults and opportunity youth with a coveted high school credential. Not a GED, but an accredited high school diploma. And then they went on, 70% of them went on to our other credential programs. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. We create impact, and we're very excited not to be a secret anymore in Detroit. We have over 3,500 students through Job Corps, through our partnership with UAW, and Ford and Chrysler, and we're looking to reach more Detroiters so they can participate fully in the economic recovery that folks like my friend Nicole here have spurred through her work with DESC and the mayor has done. This city's on a roll. We have come back, but the only way to sustain that is to help people across the city connect to the jobs that are going to be life-sustaining and family-supporting. And if we do that, we're going to see much more prosperity. So welcome to LinkedIn for helping to be a force multiplier in that equation.
All right, thanks, Ron. And Nicole, why don't you introduce Detroit Employment Solutions Corp?
So the provost said you should never follow the mayor. I'd offer you should never follow Ron Stevens. So I'm Nicole Sherard-Freeman. I lead Detroit Employment Solutions Corporation. We're actually the engine behind Detroit at Work. And Detroit at Work is the very front-facing, visible initiative of the mayor to be the one spot where everybody goes to find a job, to understand the training that supports jobs, and to find supports that you need to keep a job. And so we're actually the city's public workforce agency. We also run Grow Detroit's Young Talent, which is the city's summer youth employment program. Last year, we saw just over 20,000 new customers in our Detroit at Work Career Centers, also known as one-stop centers, which are in 3 different spots around the city. 20,000 new customers, those are folks who are, by and large, historically disconnected from the job market for one reason or another. Maybe they've fallen off the unemployment rolls, maybe they were never connected to the job market, chronically disconnected. It is our aim to meet Detroiters where they are. We are federally funded, so I should probably say publicly meet anybody who comes into a one-stop center where they are. But our focus is on Detroiters. And it is our intent to not just connect folks with a job, but to set them on the path of figuring out a career pathway that leads to, as Ron said, a job with a self-sustaining, a family-sustaining wage. And so last year we trained more than, or enabled training of more than 2,700 residents with more than 5,000 unsubsidized placements. We have much bigger goals next year, and we're excited, very excited that you're here.
Thanks, and Renee from Midnight Golf.
Hi, I'm Renee Fluker. Midnight Golf got started about 18 years ago, and I only had like 18 students. And as of today, we have over 2,500. And when you think of Midnight Golf, you would think it's playing golf, but it's more than just golf. We do after school, we meet twice a week. We have 2 cohorts, a Monday, Wednesday, and a Tuesday, Thursday. Each night, average 130 students that attend. We're at Mary Grove College, but our job is to get them into college. Finish high school, get them in college, keep them in college, and then help them find jobs. So we're with our young people maybe 5 or 6 years. And I have some young people from Wayne State that's here with us now, and they can tell you we stay in contact with them maybe monthly, sometimes twice a month. But Midnight Golf get our funding. We do grants and family foundations, and we're always looking for help. We're always looking for mentors. We have 60 mentors right now, but out of the 60, 16 of them are the MGP alums. They come back after they get a job from college, and they come back to be a mentor. And that's what really make our program work, just keeping them in college and finding a job. Thanks.
Great. And Keith, you spoke already. You want to add a little bit?
Oh, I'm always willing to speak some more. Let me add a whole nother slice of thinking about Wayne State University. So Wayne State University is a premier urban research university. That is a very unique distinction. Typically, what you have is an urban university that really has a teaching mission, that just has a teaching mission. We put them 2 together. And then when you think about that, we are an access university, meaning that what we do is not take the cream of the crop, we take a wide swath of students and provide them with the opportunity to get a degree. It provides a very unique opportunity as well. We have a we're the most diverse student body actually in the state of Michigan for lots and lots of reasons, both in terms of ability range and background and interests, all of those things. We are a school of 27,000, and one of the things that has been points of bragging lately is that we've had the fastest change in our graduation rate in the nation of schools our size. That is because we focused on the student, not focused on building great, beautiful buildings all over the place, although we have a couple. We've really doubled down efforts to be able to try to figure out what students need to be successful. And the vision that we have is that that's going to be a student that is digitally literate. And that means lots of things in lots of different ways, and maybe we'll talk about them a little bit in our conversation, but that's a little bit more about Wayne State University.
Okay, thanks, Keith. Well, one thing that, to get going, one thing that we hear a lot about these days is that soft skills, whatever soft skills means, can be more important than technical skills, even in tech companies. So what do we mean? What are these soft skills that we need, and can we teach them? Anybody?
Well, when we do our life skills, we go into resume writing. LinkedIn is one of our partners, and they come in, and we're getting our young people now ready for LinkedIn. So they be prepared to do the resumes, they do thank you cards, they have to do public speaking before they can complete our program. So those are some of the soft skills that we use, and it is mandatory that they have to complete those sessions.
So what we're finding with employers across Detroit's 5 high-growth, high-demand sectors, and so those are manufacturing, construction, and construction-related fields, retail, hospitality, and entertainment, IT, and healthcare, is that all 5 of those high-growth, high-demand sectors are requiring skill sets that are beyond, to your point, typically what we think of when we talk about soft skills, so more than just communication. But they're really leaning into this notion of constructive conflict resolution, problem solving, working in teams, and as importantly, being agile. So having a mindset that contributes to readiness for the next set of processes that they didn't learn when they came in, and couldn't possibly learn because the technology will move too quickly for anybody to have learned it when they came in, right? So having an adaptive mindset and being ready to really absorb and move with change without resistance.
I think in terms of employability skills, when I think of soft skills, I kind of like to call them power skills. And when we look at the population that we serve, we're serving those who are underserved. So we serve the formerly incarcerated. We serve those who are not high school educated. We serve those for whom our school system left them behind. You know, in the 15 years that we had state ownership of or governance of our school system, we put 250,000 people out into the workforce without a basic high school credential. So when I think of power skills or soft skills associated with those things that we address, I think of the ability to collaborate, the ability to communicate, the ability to work in teams. As you think about a diverse workforce, here's LinkedIn launching yet another satellite campus, if you will. These are the skills that the workforce requires at a very basic level that I think are essential and important. And a lot of times you have a lot of people who are second chance learners who are starting out at the bottom rung, and they're not raising their hand and saying, oh, you have a program for me because I'm not a good communicator, you know. But if you can provide them with an online modality where they can say, okay, there's some resources here, there's some help here, and I can go through that. We've seen powerful change and powerful impact with people that get energized about getting plugged back into school. So when we talk about career focus, it's not that we have any disdain for your education. We think it's a big and, not an or. You know, adding people who are not college bound, to be adding credentials, to be adding stackable credentials or certifications. And power skills and soft skills are part of that.
I'm glad you don't have disdain for your we got along so well that we
I
came.
know.
You know, I think the only thing to be able to add to everything said, because again, we are a research university. We do have some of those normal sorts of traditions and expectations of what we try to put into an education, but just what you're talking about are some of the things that we're trying to do as well. And we're trying to do it in, I think, a way that's more because we do have a little bit more of a captive audience because they come there. So we have been launching things like student challenges, where students do pitch contests. And those same kinds of skills, you know, it's not taking a course on it, it's actually an experiential learning that ends up going on, of having to be able to work with a team, we have something called the STEAM Challenge: science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And it's the idea that, any engineers here? It's gotta be. Forgive me, but the engineer may know that the round peg fits in the round bowl, but does he know what color it should be? And it's the idea of those aesthetics and the history and all of those other things. And some of that is best learned, what we think, is in an interdisciplinary setting where you have different people from different backgrounds coming together and working. So we're trying some of those same things in a real experiential way, but I think we want to go to some of the methods that you all have been able to use very effectively. Of some of those things for teamwork, to kick them off, to get people thinking, and that we have that right mindset. There's ways in which you can actually provide instruction about how to do that. I think there used to be a real pushback that soft skills, you just are or you're not. You're either a jerk or you're a nice person. You can't learn how to do those things. We can learn how you can do those things that help us to navigate and become better team people, to be able to become better contributors. And actually for us, it's about knowledge generation too. That knowledge generation is not going to probably come from just one person. We all need brilliant individual people, but sometimes their biggest impact is when they can work with others. And so we do a lot of things to try to support that.
Provost Whitfield, I think of a connection point between what you're saying, and I think of your completion agenda at Duke and now at Wayne State, and how you're finding that by focusing on the student, you're getting more out of them, and they're actually completing a program of study. I think that's the most important thing that we learned about second chance learners, and I think that's where our missions intersect very directly, is that it's about two things in this world of disrupted work. It's about creating access for those who don't have it, and it's about making education accessible on a continuum that's lifelong. Because getting a degree out of Wayne State is a starting point. Getting a certificate out of us is a starting point. You look at the jobs that are changing, and your chances are, for most of you in this group that are way, way younger than I am, you're going to have 8 more careers that you're going to contemplate over the next 30 years of your career, and that's going to require an adaptive skill set that can only happen in a lifelong learning environment and frame of mind.
Renee and I were talking earlier. Renee spent 35 years, I think, at the state of Michigan. I've been at the Free Press for 31 years, and people may not have those kind of careers anymore. So can we get people ready for that, or how do we do that?
Yeah, so I think folks are already ready for that. I think it's sort of the natural evolution and curve. So I too am a native Detroiter. I spent the first 16, 18 years of my career with one institution, and I haven't been with the same company more than 5 years since then. I mean, you have to actually know my age to do the math and know how many jobs that means, but it means probably more than folks who are a few years older than I, and may have spent 20 or 30 years in one place. I think that my experience with those who are, I'm going to say 35 and under, as we see them in our demographic, is that they're not expecting to stay in one role for more than 3-4 years, and maybe it's a couple of years. And I think there's literature that tells us that after you're about 18 months in, you should be looking for the next thing. And I think we can attribute that to just Renee and I were talking earlier. We can attribute that to just, I think, a technological shift and other cultural shifts that make us want things faster and more things and access to more things. And I think it's just created an entirely different mindset. And I think at least younger generations aren't expecting to spend many years in the same place.
I know that's one of our challenges, is trying to figure out how do you educate people for jobs that don't exist. Because easily in 15 years, there are going to be a set of jobs that we don't even know exist. So how do you train people that? You use the soft skills. You use ways in which people actually do problem solving and work with other people. It's those kinds of basic skills that will actually allow the flexibility that people need to be able to pursue and compete for jobs. But it's fascinating. So in the Detroit area, it's estimated that there's about 600,000 people with some college but no degree. And while my business is getting people degrees, a degree may not necessarily be for everyone, but skills that they need to be able to advance, to pursue the things they want to do, those are necessary. And so we're in that job too. We really want you to get a degree, but we really want to be able to provide those kinds of skills so that as time goes on and the challenges that are going to come with ever-advancing technology and ever-advancing changes in our culture, that we actually have people that are prepared for that. We're concerned because in this area, we have lots of folks who need that upskilling. It's not a term we use in academia enough now, of that we need to be actually thinking about not necessarily the 18-year-old who's going to be coming to college, but the 26-year-old who's coming back to college or wants to get some additional education. How can they actually be able to pursue it given all of the life circumstances that they have and the competing demands on their time? If they can't keep up with those sorts of things, they're going to get farther and farther behind. So we have to be able to find opportunities for them to be able to pursue that kind of knowledge, those kinds of skills.
I guess the question is, and I've sat on panels at Oakland about this whole workforce development and how do we develop this community, and their solution is, when you talk to people in different counties, we have to go outside of the state, we have to go find and recruit and bring people here, and that's a fundamental flaw, and I'm in complete agreement. We have the capacity here, which was the building that political will to address the fact that most businesses build into their business plan the fact that they're going to be fined because they won't hire the Detroiters. So how do we, outside of finding them, because that's not going to make them change their practice, and K through 12 has their place, and your work is a wonderful place for that. But how do we connect the dots to make people actually care to develop the people that are actually here and rooted in this community?
Good question. Who went on?
So that's a fantastic question. And so I don't want to sound like the cynic that I fear I'm becoming. I don't know if we can make people care. I don't know that we can make them care. We can make it, though, not cool to look like you don't care. And those are two very different things, and we will take the latter. And so, under the mayor's leadership, the Mayor's Workforce Development Board is a table of more than 35 large local and metro area and regional and national and global companies. And quite frankly, it's a very cool place to be. And so the business peer pressure of coming forward with, when we ask the question, how many Detroit, look at your payroll and tell us how many Detroiters you have on staff. It is very natural given, the mayor's vision for having Detroit be the place that, I don't care where you fall on the spectrum, from high school dropout to dually advanced degree, Detroit is a place where there is an opportunity for you. So that's the mayor's vision, that's what he's bringing to bear, and it is actually, you're just not a cool company if you're not paying attention to those kinds of things.
I think to your point, I think this is such an important question. I think we have to think about the uncool aspect of not caring. And here's how I would look at it. I would look at it as a math equation. Okay, so in this time that we've had governance of the school system by the state with 14 other additional accrediting agencies outside the city of Detroit, we've put 250,000 people into the world without an education, sorry. And what does that mean? What it means for me in my neighborhood, I live over on the riverfront, means that if you're 14 to 17 and male, you, over the last 15 years, you had a 1 in 4 shot of completing your high school education. 1 in 4 shot. Now, the number one data point for changing that, the one thing that exponentially changed your rate of graduation, guess what it was? Becoming a Class A felon. Because if you become a Class A felon in the city of Detroit, your graduation rate goes up to 92% as you become part of the adjudicated youth services program. Okay, so you don't have to be Republican, Libertarian, Democrat, gay, straight, white, or a person of color to know that that is fundamentally uncool and wrong on so many levels. So the good news is, I think businesses are starting to see that. I think people are starting to see that because they're seeing the consequences of that. If we have uncool neighborhoods and we have uncool spaces in our city, it's because we're not thinking about how do we invite more people into this economic prosperity that we're all seeing. When we see billionaires like Jamie Dimon and Warren Buffett talking about how we need to increase tax rates because they're unfair to the rich, and these are billionaires telling us, we know we have an economic inequality problem. Well, I think that's, to Nicole's point, what we have to absolutely in this environment consider the most uncool thing that we're just not going to take it.
Renee, you want to weigh in on this?
I just want to say I need some jobs for my college freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and ones that's coming out of college. They are looking for jobs. I want them to stay in Detroit, come back home to Detroit, but they might have to go somewhere else to get a job. They complete with their degrees, but they're still looking for employment. And if we want our young people to come back home, we have to offer them jobs. And you can be a female, male, you can live outside of Detroit, but you guys have to provide some type of employment for our kids to come back.